I'm pretty happy about all the font features.
Yeah, and you know, that's another one that I'm really happy about, being a Lightroom user primarily, is that finally Camera Raw looks like Lightroom. So it actually, there's a lot of improvements in Camera Raw, but it's starting to look like where you got Camera Raw and Lightroom, and they're looking almost the same.
Right.
Which is really cool. That way, because a lot of times when I jump over to Photoshop, I'm still using the Camera Raw filter. So it's nice to have that kind of like where I'm not gonna have two things, two different styles that you're learning with. I mean, they do function the same, but it's nice to have that look of the same tool. So
yeah, you're talking really about cool. the menus being down the side, or
just the way it looks.
Yeah.
Which does matter.
It does.
But yeah, so before we jump over to the Lightroom updates, a couple of things. One, we're going to have giveaways on the show. So to enter those giveaways, you just go into the comments, give us a comment, tell us what you want to win, or just tell us a cool comment. So a couple things that we have that we're giving away. So we have the Lightra torch. So this is a off-camera light or an on-camera light. It's a continuous light that you can use to take really cool photos. So, and then we have the Platypod Ultra. So that is the tripod alternative. That's the thing. In fact, if you watched the grid before, you know about that well, very well. But if not, you'll see an ad for it. But it's an awesome tripod alternative used in architectural photography a lot, or at least Scott uses it a lot, and I use it a lot in architectural photography. I don't know about you, Jeff. Do you use the Platypod?
Once in a while.
Yep.
I have had the occasion. I don't use it on a regular basis, but I have had the occasion when I need to get a really low view.
Yep.
So I have used it for that. Sure.
We love it. So.
Yeah.
And then we'll also be giving away the SlickPick Master Level account. So over at SlickPick, this is all designed for photographers, professional for portfolio. So they're giving away a master level account, and actually they're giving away every grid member or grid watcher and every Kelby One member 50% off. So if you go over to slickpick.com/Kelby One, you can actually get 50% off any of their membership levels. So again, that's slickpick.com/Kelby One. And actually, you know, there was a cool thing that Christina was telling me about, is one of our members who won the master level account had their portfolio ported over to SlickPick. So actually what happens too at the master level account is they'll work with you to kind of port your portfolio over. So he's already moved his portfolio over. There, Jason has it actually up right there. So you can see Jock's ProPix has his portfolio already over on SlickPick. So they help work with him, get his portfolio migrated over, and there it is, all up and running. So
very clean. I like that.
Yep. Yeah, and a lot of their design, I mean, that's when you look at their designs, they're designed for photographers. They're very clean. They're the things that we talk about a lot of times when we're doing the critiques, you know, that it's not cluttered. When you click on it, it works. It kind of pops up, you know, to where you can see it. All that cool stuff. So really.
And there's an e-commerce backside to it too.
Neatly done, right? Mm-hmm. So, but another announcement. So we've been talking about Photoshop updates. We got a big Photoshop announcement in our world. Is we just launched a Photoshop conference. So we're going to be doing a Photoshop conference next month. So we did the Lightroom Kelby One Lightroom conference about a month ago. Now we're launching the Kelby One Photoshop conference. So if you go over to kelbyonelive.com and then head over there, and they might bring up the website. I'm not sure if Jason will bring it up, but if you, he's got the promo ready. Forget the website. We'll actually run the promo.
Nice.
That'll let you know all about the conference. So this is the Kelby One Photoshop conference.
I've got a question for you. What would your creative life be like if you were really good at Photoshop? I mean, imagine the things that you could do, the images you'd be able to create. Everybody wants to learn Photoshop because it's the pros' tool. It's their secret weapon. And you can do anything with Photoshop. And when I'm out there teaching, one of the most common things I hear is, Yeah, I would love to get good at Photoshop, and I use it now and then, but I'm just not that really sure what I'm doing. I also hear from people who do use Photoshop pretty regularly, but they're kind of stuck at a plateau of learning, and if they just had some time to dig in and really learn the latest stuff, they know how it would change everything for them. What if, in just 2 days, you could really unlock the power of Photoshop? You could take a big leap forward in your skills and start doing those things in Photoshop that you've only dreamed of. If you had the right instructors and your choice of classes, and you could do this all from home in your own environment where you're already comfortable and you have everything you need, there's no telling how far you could go in just that short time. Well, now that we actually have the time, we've got a way for you to supercharge your Photoshop skills and take things to the next level in just 2 days. It's a totally live, online, interactive learning experience produced and hosted by the folks who bring you Photoshop User Magazine. We're the same people who've been producing the annual Photoshop World Conferences back in the 1990s. And today, we're launching a new live Photoshop online learning experience, and we want you to be a part of it. Come and join us for the Kelby One Photoshop Conference. It's a live 2-day multi-track conference, and it's delivered completely online, so no matter where you are in the world, you can be a part of it. We brought together some of the best Photoshop instructors in the world, including trainers like Terry White, Serge Romali, Mark Heaps, Adobe's own Brian O'Neill Hughes, Tracy Sweeney, Glenn Dewis, Victoria Pavlov, along with the editor of Photoshop User Magazine and the author of the best-selling book, How Do I Do That in Photoshop? That's me, by the way. Anyway, you're going to learn a lot about Photoshop. You're going to learn more about Photoshop in 2 days than you ever thought you could. This is accelerated learning, but it's presented in a way that makes it fast and easy to learn. You can so do this, and we're there to make sure you can. Plus, you'll have exclusive on-demand access to the entire conference afterward, so you can go back and rewatch any session again, or the sessions that you might have missed during the entire 2-day event. So, what if you're brand new to Photoshop? Then you can come and join us the day before the conference for a Photoshop crash course to get you up and running fast so you can feel comfortable during the event. It's short, sweet, and to the point, but it will get you comfortable with how Photoshop works so you can make the most of the next 2 days. Plus, we have classes for beginners during the conference that will get you using Photoshop like a pro in no time. We'll also have late night sessions on the best Photoshop plugins, one-on-one Q&A sessions with our instructors, and lots of fun surprises along the way. Best of all, we've made this entire conference super affordable so anybody, anywhere can join in. So come spend a few days with us, focusing on something really positive, on being creative, on growing your skills, and getting totally immersed in learning, laughing, and supercharging your Photoshop skills. You can sign up right now for the Photoshop conference at kelbyonelive.com, and we'll see you July 14th and 15th, 2020, as the world's best come together for this unique Photoshop learning experience. We'll see you there.
All right, so we're back. So that's the Kelby One Photoshop conference. So if you go over to kelbyonelive.com and actually go over to the Photoshop conference link, you can sign up right there. So check out the schedule and all that stuff. I'm really excited about this because I was telling Scott the other day, like, you look at the schedule and I'm like, I really want to take like every class. And that's what's hard with the schedule because there's the 2 tracks. It's like picking which class I want to go to. It's like any conference. But what's cool about the Photoshop conference, like the Lightroom conference we did, is you get the access to all the recordings. So you can actually go watch the other tracks later, so, or on your own time. So really cool stuff. So very excited about that. Cool. But so let's talk about the Lightroom updates.
All
so
right.
we've got these Lightroom
Before
updates.
we do that,
Yep.
I just want to let people know with the situation here. I'm actually in studio. I'm right across from Erik, looking at him. So we're doing our social distancing here. So if I look off at a weird angle, it's because I'm looking at Erik.
Yeah, you're just looking at me. Oh,
I'm looking at Erik.
You know what?
I'm not looking at.
They kind of understand that because Scott and I will do this from time to time.
From home,
yeah.
right?
Or no, just from time to time when we're doing it in the studio like this. We've been doing, and yeah, it's just we're looking at each other like this.
So if I look off at a weird angle, I'm listening to what Erik's saying and looking at him. So
there you go.
Yeah.
All right. So, so Lightroom updates. So we've got a bunch of new Lightroom updates. Actually, if you go over to lightroomkillertips.com, so Scott did it over at Scott did the Photoshop updates over at scottkelby.com. But if you go to lightroomkillertips.com, there's a great article here by Rob where he goes over all the new updates. So Jeff, do you have anything with the new updates that you're really looking forward to?
Well, the first thing is something you mentioned earlier, is the look of it. You know, the ergonomics of it are just what, back to the camera raw, now you've got a similarity back and forth. So it's going to be easier to kind of switch back and forth. The biggest thing for me, being a camera educator, is the camera support. They've updated the new cameras support for their raw files. So there's a whole listing of files now that are supported. Also, lens support. So if you're shooting with a specific lens, you can do your auto adjustments and stuff for that lens because the new lenses are added into the software. You'll notice a lot of times you'll get a brand new camera, and the camera company decides to change the RAW format. If they change that RAW format, the onus is on the software companies to actually reverse engineer that RAW file to make it compatible with their software. So a lot of times you get a brand new camera, new file format, and you're wondering why it won't load into Photoshop, why you can't work on it in Photoshop. It usually takes a week to 2 weeks for Adobe to change that. So with this new update in Lightroom and Photoshop, the nice thing is that they're both compatible. They're all compatible now, all new file formats. So that's pretty important to remember. I'm happy about that.
That's a great point because I think that's where sometimes people get so frustrated. I actually just had that happen to me where it's and I'll go into that later, 4 months later, that still don't have an update on a file format.
Right, on the video side you were saying earlier.
And that's where sometimes you can get so frustrated because you're like, I just want to edit these files that are out of my camera, but you can't. So that's one thing to realize when you're buying a brand new camera that's just coming out, that it does take, but usually it's pretty quick. Usually the Lightroom team, the Photoshop team, they're getting those things done, or the Camera Raw team, they're getting those things done pretty quickly.
Yeah,
so
it's usually within a week or two. But people do get upset. Why doesn't this camera company allow support for Adobe? Well,
you know what would be really nice from the camera companies? It would be to actually give the manufacturers kind of like advance notice on it. I mean, it'd be nice. I'm just saying, like Nikon, Canon,
so now
Sony.
Get all the lawyers involved and everything.
I mean, it'd be nice.
It would be nice. Yeah, that's true. So, but there's a reason
that's just this risk you have when you buy a brand new camera.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah. And they don't change the file formats all that often. So, on the Canon side, we're looking at Cr3 files now, and prior Cr2 files they were around for quite a while. So it's not that often that they do it.
No.
So.
Well, all right. Well, yeah, so we have to take a break. When we come back, we're going to be talking architectural photography with Jeff. So let's come back and join us in just a few minutes. We'll see you back here on the grid.
Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs. My name is Sir Germany. I'm a French photographer living in Los Angeles, California, and I love to do fine art photography. I got lucky because I have a deal with a great German publisher. I've done 7 big coffee table books, and my work is in over 75 galleries around the world. In fact, I got the deal of the books because I had a great portfolio, and I use SlickPick for my portfolio. I switched to SlickPick because they have incredible hosting service where you can put all my photos offline. They also have incredible album sharing with privacy settings I have seen nowhere else, and so many incredible features. What's amazing about SlickPick, it's a technology to make website, but for photographer. They don't do any other job. They specialize in photography. In the past, I have personally spent thousands and thousands of dollars getting a professional designer to redo my website. With SlickPick, they're throwing the design service in for free. For the same price, you'd have to pay for hosting, with an annual fee of less than $180, which translates to less than $15 per month, which is the price of even like hosting a WordPress website. You can get a professional designer to design your website. It's crazy. So all you have to do is click the link below and get the offer. You will get the special price, which is 50% off for the first year, but you're gonna get it for life. So get it now. I love my Sleeping website. I love the business that it drives me, and I want the same success for you. Get it now.
Would you believe us if we told you that you could fit studio lighting in your pocket? Well, Lightra has made it possible. Lightra is a global award-winning brand that designs and manufactures professional-grade camera lights that are compact, rugged, and waterproof. Whether you're using Lightra gear in a photo studio or underwater, Lightra's mission is to provide content creators with flexible and unlimited lighting tools that can mount on any camera, anywhere. Their lights come with a high CRI or color rendering index, making them some of the most color accurate lights in the industry. Due to the light's compact and rugged design, photographers are able to use the lights in ways that their studio lighting never could. Lightra has also made multiple lighting accessories available to fit your every need as a creator. Whether you're shooting portraits, nailing a product shot, or even flying your drone, they have got you covered. Lightra enables photographers and filmmakers to focus on their craft and create something beautiful. What will you create?
This segment of The Grid is brought to you by B&H Photo, the professional source since 1973.
All right, so we are back. So we're talking about architectural photography now. So Jeff's joining us to talk about architectural photography. Specifically, Jeff, we wanted to talk about kind of expanding how one looks at architectural photography, right? Because when I hear the word architectural photography, and I think a lot of people, when they hear it, they think of just pictures of buildings, right? So when you say expanding the view on architectural photography, what are you really talking about there?
Well, the biggest expansion would be into fine art. There's a lot of fine artists out there that are using buildings in their fine art photography. That's probably the area that I would most move to. But there's interiors, there's magazine work, there's a lot of different types of architectural photography. I call them genres that you can actually get into that are basically shooting in the same way that you would shoot regular buildings. So the reason I'm here and the reason I'm on the grid today is later this afternoon we're going to be recording a class, architectural photography, market, shoot, edit is what we call it. And it's got basically how to market yourself, how to go out and do a shoot, and then how I edit my images. So it's kind of a all-encompassing class to be up on Kelby 1 later this year. So I'm excited about that, but I just want people to kind of expand that a little bit. I know Scott does a lot of architectural work these days with his fine art, a lot of cathedrals and stuff where I love what he's doing. He's forcing the perspective, letting that perspective happen naturally. That's why he's using the platypod, basically putting his camera on the ground and shooting up. And I just love that. It doesn't have to always be straight lines, right? It can be something very creative and very artistic. And I think a lot of people think that when we talk about architecture, all the lines are straight up and down, and it's very rigid kind of a thing. We'll go to my screen here. Here's some actually. This is architectural photography. These are all buildings. This is basically a self-assignment that I have that I've been doing for, golly, since I was on the Kelby seminar tour, way back probably 15, almost 20 years ago. Right. And these are basically, I've started noticing repeated patterns in buildings. So as I'm walking around a city, I'm always on the lookout for this type of an image. Basically looking for this. I'm coming from a graphic design background, so these black and white graphics and repeated patterns are kind of interest to me. So I've got buildings from all over the world, so which is kind of nice. I can actually go through these now. I've got thousands of these, and I can tell you almost exactly where every building is. So it's kind of a neat project for me. as I go through.
All right, where's that building?
What's that?
Where's that building?
That one right there is in London.
All right, there you go.
There you go.
Just testing you.
Yep. Yeah, I know you were.
How about that one?
London.
Actually, I knew that.
You knew that one. That's an easy one. That building's actually well photographed.
Yes.
So it's not hard to miss that one. You know that one too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there are a lot of London images in here because London's got a lot of great buildings.
Good architecture. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Right. Fantastic buildings.
You go to certain cities, and so what's. Let me ask you that with architecture photography, especially like this style. What is your favorite city to shoot in so far?
People ask me. I mean, I've been to, especially traveled on the seminar tour. In my current job, I travel very extensively. Also, I can't pick a city.
You got to pick one.
Think about it. Okay, I'll pick one. All right, London. I would say probably my favorite to do this. Okay.
Yeah.
To do this type of work. New York is fantastic with this.
Yes.
Another thing that I do, another assignment is architectural numbers. So, it's not just a number on a wall. It's actually big numbers for addresses on buildings.
Okay.
And I'll do it the same way. I'll make it black and white, and I'll go ahead and kind of force the perspective and stuff and make it creative. But I'll pick a section of New York on a day, and I'll just walk around. I've got to do between these streets, these corridors, and I'll walk back and forth and do those. And so New York is really good.
So you're kind of giving yourself like a self-assignment within that guides of architecture. So kind of looking at architecture, but then picking a certain thing, like for example, the numbers, that is looking at numbers of buildings and how do I convey that through pictures.
Correct. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So if you look at my Instagram post, for instance, you'll notice that I have a lot of numbers as you go through that. And they're black and white, and they're very graphic in nature, just like these are. And it's kind of a self-assignment that I do. But my point with these is just to show you that there's more to architectural photography than just a fancy home shot with a lot of nice lights or a building. There's a ton of things you can do in the fine art realm in architectural photography.
So Tom has a question for you, and it is. Any issues with security chasing you away, thinking you're up to no good? I mean, I know this happens to all of us, right?
So yes, absolutely. I have been kicked out of lobbies and stuff in almost every city. So the latest being Miami. And I'm polite about it. I'm good about it. Basically, if you run into that situation, if you see a picture, I set my camera up way ahead. And I run in and I grab the picture and I leave before they have a chance to come say something. If they do, I'm polite about it and I walk away. I don't start trouble. I'll just move. Basically, for these, I'll just walk across the street and take the picture. They can't actually do anything about it if you're on the in public. If you're on their private property, that's a totally different scenario. So I think the biggest one was in Milwaukee. I was doing this, and there was a building, and about 3 blocks away, I was stopped by 2 police officers on bikes, and they asked me what I was doing, and it turned out that I was actually photographing a federal building and didn't know it. But I was real polite about it. I said, "Would you like to see the images?" I showed him the images, and I said, "You know what? I can just erase these if it would make you feel better." And he goes, "Would you do that?" And I just sat there and erased them right in front of him, and it worked out just fine. Yeah, so you do have to be a little careful. That was a great question. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you have any other questions for Jeff, just ask them in the comments. So Jeff, expanding kind of like what have you noticed? Like, obviously you do a lot of this, architectural photography. Have you found that there's ways to kind of expand also to kind of make money or market yourself in different areas that a lot of architectural photographers don't think about?
Yeah, that is true. You think about architectural photography, what's the first thing that comes to mind? You're going to shoot for architects, right? Architects, and architectural firms. The reality is that there's interior design firms. So when I do a shoot, my images are available to the interior designer that may have done that shot, to the furniture company that may have done that shot. I work for corporations doing this type of work. The image I have up on screen right now, if we can switch to that, that's Nemours Children's Hospital. I didn't shoot this for the architect. I have actually was hired by Nemours Children's Hospital to take photographs of their interior. So it doesn't have to be an architect. There are manufacturers of boats, yachts, motorhomes, a lot of different things. One of my clients, Florida Stainless Manufacturing, basically sent me to Wisconsin. There was the University of Wisconsin had 2 new student dining halls, and they did all of the in the dining hall is more like a food court, and they did all of the stainless steel work for that. So they wanted images of what was going on there, and they weren't. I wasn't, zoomed in on their stainless steel. I was taking the entire areas, and that was a couple-day job, and that was a manufacturer. It wasn't an architect at all, but it was architectural photography. So I can go through some of the samples that I have here. Some of them were So these are just shots over the years. In pulling this together and in pulling my class together, I've realized that I have done hundreds and hundreds of jobs over the years without realizing it. But again, hospitals. This was done for an architect, but the city who owns this and rents it out uses it now. This is Orlando International Airport, one of their new terminal ports. Ronald McDonald House. I do a lot of work for Ronald McDonald House. Some I donate, some is a paying job, but it's a great charity that I like being involved with. Here's a shot from that Florida Stainless job I told you about. Again, it wasn't an architect, it wasn't an interior designer, it was the actual stainless manufacturer. We were a trade show in Las Vegas. I just went down in the middle of the night and set up my tripod about 4 o'clock in the morning with nobody around. This is an unused lobby. I just thought it was kind of neat to shoot. So there's just a lot of different areas that you can get into and photograph. It doesn't necessarily.
That last one, that's a really neat architecture.
That one right there.
That's just wild.
Yeah, that one. I just shot this actually back in February when I was out in Vegas for WPPI. We went out one night and photographed this building. Believe it or not, it is a brain institute. So they deal with brain issues, brain injuries and issues. So yeah, it's a beautiful building.
Yeah.
Day and night.
That's cool.
Yeah. So anyway, my point is that you don't have to be confined to just working for architects. There's builders, interior designers, manufacturers, a lot of different people you can actually work for.
All right, cool. Well, we have some questions, but we need to take a break. So when we come back, we'll be asking some questions about architecture photography. If you guys have any other questions, just ask them in the chat, and we'll be back in just a few minutes.
Is the tripod dead? Sure, a tripod works for basic shots, but who wants to be basic? You don't need basic, you need blockbuster. And that's a job for a platypod. The platypod is your go-anywhere, do-anything flat tripod base. Its compact design helps you discover unique angles that you could never reach with a typical tripod. So, whether you're bringing up baby, driving Miss Daisy, or with your beasts of the southern wild, you can capture big-budget footage and stills for a fraction of the time and money. So go ahead, shoot the next Rocky or Birdman. Or on the waterfront, the platypod is equipped to grip uneven surfaces and hang from just about anything. When tripods go low, the platypod goes lower. Its flat base reaches the lowest possible angle, resulting in truly inventive shots that can't be replicated with traditional equipment. And if you feel like adding a dramatic overhead angle, the platypod has you covered. Just strap it or screw it in, and you're ready to go within minutes. The platypod is constructed from aircraft-grade aluminum and titanium. Yeah, the stuff Air Force One is made of. So it's durable enough to travel with you from Chinatown to Casablanca and everywhere in between. If you only take the tripod, the story ends. You wake up the next morning with nothing but basic footage. Or you could take the platypod to a museum, or on an elevator, or strap it to a tree, or hanging on a bench at church, or put it on the ground and get incredible blockbuster footage. Who are we kidding? You should totally take the platypod. The tripod is not dead, but it needs a sidekick, the platypod.
Hey there, my name is Brett Malley. I'm a Kelby 1 instructor and Adobe Press author. If you've been wondering what more you can do with your landscapes, take a look at my latest class on landscape compositing. In this class, I cover everything from how to change out your backgrounds, how to bring in a foreground and a subject, and even changing lighting and atmosphere. So if you've ever wondered how to do landscape compositing, now's your chance, right here on Kelby 1. Check it out.
Lightroom 2020 is out. It's the latest version of Lightroom, and they have added so many cool things to it. But here's the thing, it's not just the stuff they just added, it's the stuff they've been adding for the last 1.5 to 2 years. They just, every 3 months, here comes more stuff and more stuff. And you know, when you signed on to this whole subscription thing, you were like, this is gonna be great. I'm gonna get new features every 3 months. Be careful what you wish for, because staying on top of all these features is hard. That's why I did this class. I want to show you, you're going to see stuff that you didn't even know they snuck in. There's so many things that it's one of the longest classes I've ever done. But here's the thing, you don't have to watch it all. You can jump right to the lessons and the things that you haven't learned yet. Also, I include everything in here. I do a whole big section on Lightroom Classic, then Lightroom, the cloud version, whatever it's called, and then Lightroom Mobile, whatever it's called. They're all called different stuff that all sounds the same. But I covered it all. It's all in my brand new class. You're going to learn tons of stuff, and it's only here at Kelby 1.
This segment of The Grid is brought to you by Canon.
All right, so we're back. We're talking architectural photography here with Jeff, and we got some questions from you guys. If you guys have any other questions, just enter them in the chat. But first question for you, Jeff, is Josh is asking, how do you deal with property releases? So with these shots, how do you deal with property releases?
So I'm gonna handle this in 2 ways. First, I'm gonna tell you on the fine art side, don't really usually need to worry about that, especially the type of work that I'm doing. And I'm showing the whole building. A lot of people, unless they work there every day or they design the building themselves, they'll never even recognize their building. So I don't really worry about it on that side. On the other side, when I'm working for an architect, they have all the rights to image that building. So I never worry much about that. Now, when you talk about people in the image, now we're talking about getting into a whole nother area of licensing and making sure.
How does it work though with like, say you had like you're working for, I don't know, like you're saying you're working for a company that built something in the building, like the stainless steel.
Okay.
They built the stainless steel. Like, how does that work with property releases?
Well, the reality is that we all have permission to be there. So that is all worked out ahead of schedule. It's not something that I normally deal with because I leave that up to the architect.
So the company that's hiring you already has the rights to the release. Okay.
Right. So I was just last week, I did the Orlando International Airport had some updates, and I was out there with the architect. Obviously, at an airport, you need to be escorted because we did a lot of on tarmac and
I imagine you put a tripod down at an airport, you're going to get somebody on you pretty quick.
Yeah, pretty quick. Yeah. I mean, you would. But we have people there to escort us around that are badged and able to be there. But again, all of that is usually dealt with through the architect itself. Their people arrange all that. I usually just show up and I never have an issue. I've never once had an issue actually.
Okay.
Yep.
So Brian's asking a question of how often do you need to get a release to sell architecture prints? So how often do you need to get the release to actually sell these prints? Right.
So on the actual architectural side, I don't normally need that because I'm the owner. I maintain ownership of all of my images. So therefore, I'm allowed to use them for whatever I want to use it, and that's contracted in. My contract clearly states that you are basically renting a license from me to use these images for your own use, but I own them and I can do whatever I want with them, basically.
Right.
So that doesn't come into play. On the fine art side, we talked about that. You know, I'm not selling anything that's, you know, I typically won't, I'm not selling the image of the entire building or anything like that. So there are a lot of architectural photographers that are in the fine art realm that do that, and I'll be honest with you, I don't have the experience with that because I don't have to deal with that. So it just depends on how you're, you know, how you're set up to work with that.
Okay. So Catherine's asking, are the exterior shots always done with a tripod?
All shots are always done with a tripod. So interior, exterior. And in my class that I'm going to record today, there's one thing I note, that a tripod is very important, and I specifically say don't cheap out on the tripod. Probably, obviously you can't take the picture with the camera, but the next thing, I think the tripod is even more important than the lens that you use, to be honest, because you need a steady base. Without that steady base, you'll never get things aligned. We use tilt shift lenses. We want to make sure our lines are straight up and down. If we don't have that camera leveled each time, you're going to have issues. So always use a tripod. Yeah, and I always take 2 tripods with me on site. I've got one that we've got a little lighting issue here.
Yeah. It's like, you know, we went moody on you first.
Yeah, that's
like
all
it's
right.
like a moody now. It's kind of cool.
Yeah. We good?
Yeah, no, we're good. It's just, yeah, it's, I think you started talking about gear and the lighting got jealous.
That's all right.
So speaking of that, you know, like Flash is asking, what lenses are you using for most of your photos?
So I use, the main 2 lenses I use are a 24 millimeter and a 17 millimeter Canon tilt shift lenses. Those are my 2 go-to lenses.
Expensive.
They are, but they do the, you know, they get the results.
But that's true. That's true. I mean,
yeah.
I'm going to talk about that in a second.
Yeah, I mean, they've paid for themselves many times over. So, but other than that, I'll usually have I have an 11 to 14. 11 to 24 Canon lens with me. A 16 to 35 is usually with me, and then I'll take a standard lens, a 24-105, just in case. For instance, I have to shoot from across the street or something. I want to make sure that I have a lens that'll reach what I need.
And you're using the tilt shift in most of your stuff because that tilt shift's allowing you to get those perspectives, like the lines of the building.
Correct.
So not distort the image, right?
Correct. Yeah. So what you want to do, there's, you know, it says tilt shift. There are 2 functions to a tilt shift lens.
Right.
There's the tilt and the shift, right? So the tilt actually will allow you to tilt the lens, and it changes the focal plane. So if the focal plane is changed, I can have better control of my apertures and get more things in focus. I don't use that too often, but it's available. But the main thing is the shift portion of it. So the shift portion of it allows you to line up the camera perfectly level. I use the virtual horizon on the back of the camera, and I level it up perfectly. And once it's level, then I can actually shift the lens up and down. So if I'm inside, for instance, and I've noticed that straight on I have too much ceiling, I can actually shift the lens down and drive in more ground, or vice versa. If I'm outside, I can tell if I'm straight on and the building is in the center, I can say, okay, there's too much sky or there's too much ground, and I can shift that lens up and down, keeping my line straight up and down. If I tilted the camera with a normal lens, what would happen? You tilt that lens, all your lines become slanted, right? Yeah. You force that perspective on a regular lens. With the tilt shift, I can dial it in up and down and frame the image the way I want, keeping my line straight. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes total sense.
I think
that's
what,
like Lyle's asking, do you use the tilt shift lenses for non-architectural stuff as well?
Yes. So what's cool about these lenses is I know that Canon just came out not too long ago, less than 2 years ago, with a 135 tilt shift. So people say, well, how could you couldn't use that for architecture necessarily, but what a fantastic portrait lens. So because of the tilt and the shift nature of it, you can change the focus plane of the camera, of the lens, and do all kinds of creative type of focusing. A lot of food photographers will use a tilt shift lens. The 50 and the 90 are popular for that. And you can get these real shallow lines of focus where everything else is blown out of focus. So you can, and actually you have really fine control of where that focus plane is. So you can use those for getting some really creative results in other types of photography.
Oh yeah, and definitely that's what my only experience with it is really on the video side of getting at a tall perspective and then actually using a tilt shift lens to kind of force the focal plane. So like you're talking about, so then it kind of looks like you're running on a time lapse, you're running like miniatures.
Yes,
you know,
yes,
and that's the way I've used it before. I actually did it at Photoshop World one time where we set up a camera up in the rafters and had everybody kind of coming into rooms or coming into the trade show floor, like all sped up.
Sped up, yeah.
Yeah, and then it looks like little miniatures kind of, moving around. Well, so one last question here is, what other gear do you use? So you talked about your lenses, you talked about having a sturdy tripod. So what kind of tripod, what type of camera, that kind of stuff?
Gotcha. Well, I like the new mirrorless cameras. Obviously, there's some really nice features on there, like focus peaking, for instance, and focus guide. Those things are really nice to use because the tilt shift lenses are they're not autofocus. So if they're not autofocus, being able to actually see the edges of what's in focus light up in a different color, and I can tell all the way down the line that every one of these windows on this building is in focus, which is pretty helpful. Obviously, there's a lot of things that I take out. A tripod, we talk about that. An iPad. A lot of times I'll hook the camera up to an iPad, set the camera up, and walk around with my iPad and adjust furniture, for instance. This pillow needs to be moved over. This chair needs to be slightly adjusted. Instead of running back and forth around the camera to see what I've changed, I just look at the iPad right where I stand, and I can make micro adjustments without running back and forth. My assistant will actually walk around with that iPad and make changes. I think the most unusual thing that I take out on a job that might surprise you is a battery-powered leaf blower. So it's not camera gear, but it cracks me up every time I throw it into the back of the vehicle to take on a job, because instead of going back and spot cleaning up a bunch of leaves that are on somebody's on a sidewalk or the road, and a lot of times you're dealing with new construction, you've got sand and stuff in the road. You can blow all that away really quick and easily. Yep. So that's probably the most unusual thing I take out on the job.
No, that's awesome. I mean, that's a great tip, because that's what a lot of people don't realize is the other stuff that goes into making the images, right? I mean, we got to have a camera. We got to have a tripod. We got to have a lens. But sometimes, when you get into these different types of shooting, how you gonna simplify your frame? How are you gonna clean up your frame? That kind of stuff.
Right.
Well, we got other questions coming in, so let's just keep on going with a couple more questions. Then I know we got to take a break. I know we're going over, but so Daniel's asking, what tripod head do you use, Jeff? 3-way Arca Swiss? ?
Yes. Okay. So it is an Arca Swiss because I use a lot of L brackets and stuff. So Arca Swiss for sure. I use a ball head, standard ball heads, because of the virtual horizon on the cameras these days. I can get it pretty dang close to where I need it.
What ball head do you use?
I use I've got a couple. I've got some really right stuff on one tripod. I use Enduro tripods, and I've used on one of my tripods, one of their ball heads is on there. So I use a variety.
Right.
I've got one of their
standard ball heads.
Yeah, with standard ball heads. One of their tripods I can go up to 9 feet. So I'm pretty.
Very nice.
I get the bigger ball head just for the stability. But you know, don't cheap out on the tripod. I'll keep reiterating that over and over again.
Yes, I mean that's a architectural, landscape photography.
Yes.
Those type of, especially architecture and landscape, and really the reason you need to be is not only do you need everything to be straight and secure, but you're gonna sometimes be shooting at higher more clamped down f-stops.
Right.
So you're gonna be like a f11,
slower shutter speed.
A slower shutter speed,
exactly.
and any movement is gonna take that sharpness out of the image.
Plus, I bracket. I always bracket. I'm not typically an HDR guy, but I always shoot just in case I need to use some kind of HDR or blending options or something with the image. I always shoot a good 7-frame bracket. The only time I won't use a tripod is if I'm walking around a city and I'm taking these fine arts of building stuff. I don't with that, but anytime I'm doing a job, it's on a tripod. I like the fisheye.
So John's asking, do you ever use a fisheye for architectural photos?
Yes. Okay. So the fisheye. There's somebody told me one time it'll be your favorite lens that you use once a year. But I use it more often than you think. A lot of times I'll get stuck in doing a small bathroom or something, or a laundry room in an apartment complex or something, right?
You need data sometimes.
Sometimes you just need something that's so wide, and we can go and clean up the edges in post.
Yes.
And if you leave your camera level, you don't have that bowing distortion that we normally have. That's come to be known for a fisheye. Another reason I've used a fisheye is a couple years ago I did a lot of photography on cruise ships and hotels for a travel website. And they had a system where I had to use the 8mm fisheye and do multiple images around a room so they could actually stitch those together to get a 3D. So there are applications for a fisheye. And the one I use the most, obviously, is just if I need a super wide angle that my 11 or my 17 tilt won't get into.
Well, and I think a good thing for the point of the fisheye is kind of like you talk about. Sometimes you'll have to. It's nice to use different lenses like that because then you're bringing something to the game that nobody else is doing, So it might be also that you're just kind of using a fisheye in certain circumstances, but you're right in the sense of usually a fisheye, you're kind of like, I'm not going to use a fisheye here. But there's that one or two times, like for example, fisheyes for like architecture, like in stadiums and stuff.
Oh,
the
perfect.
fisheyes look awesome.
How else are you going to get the whole thing?
Yeah,
there's no other way to do it.
It's just really cool. Yeah. So it's a good thing to have in your arsenal. So
yes, absolutely. Good
Lyle's
question.
asking, do you do any light painting or other augmentation of that type? So basically, like light painting or anything like that.
Yeah,
is bringing light to the scene, maybe.
Yeah, sometimes. I have a set of strobes. I'll be honest, I don't always use them. In fact, most of the work that I do, I don't necessarily need them, but I have them available if I need them. I also have a whole set of flashlights that I've collected over the years. Way back when I had my workshop tour with my buddy Randy and Dave Black and Rob Sylvan, we had a workshop tour and we did a lot of light painting. So I've collected these flashlights over time. So if I'm in an interior, if I'm just for instance a library here, I've got a library up, a law school library here. If I need to just brighten up an area, I will go in there and just brighten that one area, painting it with a flashlight. So yes, I do that. Some of that, not often, but sometimes it happens.
All right.
Yep.
Well, we do need to take a break. When we come back, I'm gonna. We're kind of over time, but I'll show you my new favorite mirrorless camera. We'll talk about that when we get back.
This segment of The Grid is brought to you by Platypod, the world's most compact tripod base.
Make sure you don't miss any episodes of The Grid by subscribing to Apple's podcast app or iTunes. It's free, and we even have a special audio-only version too. So sign up today.
Oh, we're back. Hey, we're back. So anyways, I didn't know we were back. So I wanted to talk about my new favorite mirrorless camera. So I just got this in a few days ago to start shooting with, test it out. But it's actually a mirrored camera that is my new favorite mirrorless camera. So it is the 1DX Mark III. This thing is a beast. This thing is awesome. So actually I was just putting the lens on, but I've been shooting with this thing, and what's awesome about it is not only is it a great DSLR camera, but when you flip that mirror up, I'll probably put it on here so you can see, but if you flip that mirror up, it becomes the best mirrorless camera I've ever shot with. It is amazing. And I was just talking to Jeff about it. What I was been doing is actually taking my Zucado Z Finder from my old 5D Mark II that I had, mounted it to where it fits over the back viewfinder and shooting it like it's an electronic viewfinder. And it's just awesome. I mean, I've yet to find like, and that's what I have up on my screen. This is how I feel about it. This is the only, the meme, this is it. It's like, I feel like an elf where I'm like, I'm in love with this camera. Like, I don't even care who knows it. Like, this camera is amazing, and it's awesome. And I know there's other cameras out there by other manufacturers that are awesome too. But me as a Canon shooter, like, this is like the first camera that I've had that I've been like, okay, this has everything I want. This has everything. And I wrote down a couple things, like, just things like, so far my impressions. Like, the one thing that this camera has that's very interesting is the ISO looks better at lower, like meaning when 800 ISO on my other cameras, this looks like I'm shooting at, when I'm shooting at 800 ISO on this, it looks like I'm shooting at 400 ISO on my other ones. When I'm shooting, so it's just way cleaner, especially at those higher ISOs. So if I'm shooting at 12,800, it looks like a 6,400 ISO. Like, it's very good at the high ISOs. The other thing is it has a bunch of autofocus points. I mean, just a ridiculous amount of autofocus points. But what's really cool is, because you have that mirrored section of it, you can turn on your electronic, or the back of the LCD screen, and you have everything like it's perfect. Like, so it will do all the autofocus points, so 191 autofocus points, and it's almost edge to edge when you flip it up.
Well, that's with the mirror. Now, when you're using the mirror, you've got the
when you're using the mirror, it's a smaller area.
It's a smaller area, but you still have that large number of points.
But you have those large number of points. But when you flip that mirror up and you turn it into a mirrorless camera, the amount of autofocus points and how wide they are and how you can track craziness.
Well, almost the entire screen. You're looking at 100%.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's like it's like 90% of the screen is covered with autofocus
90% horizontal, but it's 100% vertical.
It's amazing. Yeah. I mean, it is. I mean, I'm excited about it. Like, it is just amazing. And the other thing that really sets this camera apart is when you start getting into that frames per second, right?
Yes.
So it has 20 frames per second,
right,
which is just amazing. It's like you're shooting 20 raw frames per second. And what's interesting about that is that's all mechanical as well as electronic. So you can do it mechanically or electronic. And I'll tell you, it's just awesome. I haven't had, I've put it through some of its paces. So, in fact, I think
keep in mind when you're using this shutter, you've got 16 frames a second. When you go to live view, you open it up to 20 frames a second.
Yeah, you actually increase, which most cameras don't do that. You actually increase the amount of frames per second you have when you're in live view. And like, so I shot a rocket launch the other day. So here's, I think the images right here. So you can see like, I am shooting the rocket launch and like, oh, that's actually a duck in the pool in my backyard that I was shooting before the rocket launch. But here's the rocket launch. So like, this is the rocket as it's going off, right? And like, you have so much ridiculous data in there. I mean, I could pull out the exact frame I want. I mean, down to like the millisecond, which is like, you know, and that's when you get in here, like, this is just super, super nice. I mean, that's just, now I had auto white balance on here because I wanted to test the camera and see how it does. What I normally would do with an image like here is I know the Falcon 9 rocket is like 30-50 on there. Boom, white balance. I take out some of the highlights, maybe add some of the shadows, maybe increase the texture, maybe some dehaze. I pull out, maybe do a little bit of a crop in here, right? Maybe we crop it down, maybe somewhere in here. But already right there, just in real quick, you went to like a awesome. I mean, it's just amazing.
You know, we talk about speed and we talk about 16 and 20 frames a second, but
I mean, it's just insane.
One thing you got to also mention about this camera is that the buffer will keep up with that.
Oh, no, I mean,
speed. And that's RAW and JPEG.
So I actually tested this out because I wanted to see. I got over 1,000 frames. It says 1,000 frames, but it clears the buffer as it goes. I shot over 1,000 frames consistently with the camera, and it did not buffer. That's full raw, like just did not buffer.
So I'll give you an interesting comparison.
I mean,
on the 5D Mark II, on the 5D Mark II, you can shoot it at 14 frames a second, and it will buffer at about 12 seconds. This camera, you can shoot the 16 frames a second. It'll buffer. It won't buffer for over a minute.
I mean, there's some images like, it's just, so then, you know, so I don't shoot birds. I don't shoot birds. However, I had to figure out something that I could shoot with this camera because a lot of things are just, I don't have sports to shoot that I normally would shoot. I don't have aviation photography, which I usually shoot, and rockets, they only go off so often. But I started shooting birds down the street from me, and it's just incredible what this camera will do with shooting birds and how, I mean, it was, and again, mind you, these are raw photos. I've done nothing to them because I normally wouldn't show this because these are my raw photos, but it's amazing like what this camera will do and what this camera, I mean, just amazing.
And the tracking.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like these shots here, like these birds, and I don't know what kind of birds these are. I have again, I'm not a bird photographer whatsoever. These are my first bird shots ever in my life. And this bird would go down into the water and like scoop up fish. So I just found it interesting and started shooting them. And the camera tracks so beautifully with this stuff. And it's just amazing what this camera will do. I mean, it's just sick. I mean, I was actually shooting with it, and that's why I was like, this is just sick. Like it is the perfect, and so then let me flip now. So I'm also, as you know, I'm a video shooter. That's actually where I come from. I come from that video world. This is at the same time a amazing video camera. So it shoots 5.5K raw video.
Right.
And so if you don't know what that is, like, so I started experimenting with this last year where I started using the Blackmagic camera and shooting raw video. So what raw video is doing is actually allowing you to take sequential raw images that you can then edit later in that video format and adjust those things like we can do. But it's also allowing me to adjust like my ISO if I wanted to like up or down my ISO in the video file, if I want to change my white balance in the video file. Just amazing stuff. So, and that goes up to 60 frames a second. So 5.5K at 60 frames per second. I shot some video of that, and it is just, it's amazing. I actually shot it at, my ISO was 12,800 ISO on the video file, and I actually dropped it down to 6,400 because I liked it better, but I was able to do that after I shot it, which was just like, it's just mind blowing. But then it also records like 4K in all your standard formats. It
all
also
internal
shoots 10,
recording too.
And all internal. That's the other thing. This all shoots internal, so you don't have to have an external recorder. I mean, yeah, I could keep on going on about this camera probably for a whole episode, and we're way over time.
Right.
But honestly, I mean, I've taken to this camera. I'm trying to put it through all its paces because I usually do shoot what I shoot for most of my stuff is the 1DX, the 1DX Mark II, and a 1DC. That's my cameras that I usually use.
Right.
So I wanted to really test out the Mark III, and it's just no. So does the 1DX Mark III still use motion JPEG codec for video? It does not. It uses H.265 as well as that raw video format, as well as H.264. I don't quote me on it, but it uses H.265, so it's even better. And it actually shoots internally 422 in those formats. But then if you go raw video, it's 422, but then 12-bit.
12-bit.
So it's like crazy video. And if you're a video person, you're going, no, really. I mean, no, it shoots like 422, 12-bit, raw, 5.5K, 60 frames per second in camera. And it comes out, and it's beautiful. Now, with that, this isn't a gripe with Adobe now. So I went to go, use my footage from this camera. And I went to go launch Premiere, and I got my Premiere all updated, and Premiere's like, I don't know what this file is. What's this file? So I started doing research on it, and Adobe Premiere hadn't come out with an update yet, and this camera's been out since, February?
Yeah.
February? Yeah, so, been out since February, hasn't come with an update. So I actually booted up DaVinci Resolve, which is the other program that I'm starting to get more into. I'm hoping Adobe Premiere kind of ups their game because I'm starting to move to Resolve for pretty much everything. And boot up Resolve, it read the file right away. So they had already updated. They had updated it, I looked at, like you had said, a couple weeks after the camera had come out. But Adobe, in all fairness, yesterday just came out with an update for Adobe Premiere that has it in it. So now you can take your raw video files right out of your Canon camera into Adobe Premiere. But again, I can't speak enough. I mean, I'm interested to get in here to like these files and look. Because like I said, I haven't shot birds before, but I mean, it's just like crazy if you get in here.
Yeah, I've done
some of this.
2 architectural jobs with it so far, and the files are pretty stellar.
It's just crazy what I've been able to get out of here. And again, I'm not even a bird photographer. I will say this about bird photography. I've never done it before, but I'm going to do more of it because it's great practice for me. I mean, it's hard. So I'm in aviation, into, rocket photography, sports and stuff. Birds is like super practice, especially tracking birds. Like that would, if I was a sports photographer, I would be out shooting bird photography just to practice right now. Yeah. Holy moly.
I've been fortunate enough that I've had to do a couple birding events over the last couple years. Just did the Hummingbird Migration Festival in Mississippi late last year, and that was pretty fun. And that's the first time I've ever shot hummingbirds, and that was pretty interesting. But birding takes some time. There's definitely
there's definitely
birding, following.
Yeah, there's definitely stuff that I'm learning about it, but it was a great experience, great practice, and I don't know what these birds are, but they're really interesting. Like these ones that pick up the fish out of the water. I don't know what they are, but they're really interesting. So, cool. But again, just birds. And you know what it is? I think growing up in Florida, we going to the beach, it's like seagulls, and then you just got seagulls like raining down on you, where you're kind of like, birds.
It's true.
Yeah. So
too many people.
Well, hey, we're way over time, so we have to take a break, or we have to wrap up the show. Yeah. But we need to talk about the winners of the contest. So we have the Platypod, the SlickPick membership, and the Lytra. So the Platypod is going to Erica Thompson. So you've won the Platypod. Right. And then Rick G has won the SlickPick membership. And then David in Atlanta has won the Lytra 2.0. So, and again, don't don't forget, if you want to take up that SlickPick has that 50% off their membership or their subscriptions over there at slickpick.com/Kelby1. You can get 50% off. And then if you're one of those winners, just email us at gridprize@kelby1.com. We'll confirm your information and then send you your prize. So,
cool.
But anyways, Jeff, thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for
pleasure.
talking architecture photography. I know people loved it. So yeah, so they can go follow you over on Instagram, right?
Yes. So what's up now is my standard Instagram account. I also have one, JL Photographic Architecture. So if you want to, this one right here is just general photography. But if you want to go to the architectural one, that's where I post all of my architectural work. My daughter has been managing that for me, and
cool.
Bless her for doing so. She's doing a great job on that. Cool. And we just started it, that particular one, I think this year. So she's doing a good job on it. There's a lot of images up there. So
cool.
Yep.
And thanks to everybody here. So thanks to Jason. And if you want to go follow Jason, it's over there on Instagram at The Digital Surgeon. He's been doing some awesome stuff on Instagram as well, shooting the moon and snakes and stuff. I've been watching his stuff. His moonshot the other day, that one, really cool stuff he was doing there. I mean, that's really cool. Great job. So, and then thanks to Christina moderating the chat. And then thanks to Ron over there on the stream. And thanks to you guys for tuning in. So reminder about the Kelby One Photoshop conference. So you can go sign up over at kelby1live.com. And we will see you guys next week back here on the grid.
Take care. Thank you.
Thanks.